Gemini 2.5 Pro is the best model available right now for coding and other use cases. It tops the leaderboard of several benchmarks like Chatbot Arena instead of using Gemini 2.5 Pro in Google AI Studio. In this video, I want to show you how to get started with the API so that you can start using it in building your own apps. To begin, you should make sure you install Google Gen AI with this command. You will also need python.env to load your API key, so you can install python.env as well. Next, you should export your API key with this command. Once you perform these two steps, you can now go to your favorite editor like Cursor and start working with the API. Over here, I have added these imports. I showed you how to install Google Gen AI and also python.env. So over here, we want to load it from the environment variable. You have noticed here, I have a .env file. So what you need to do in the .env file, I'll go back to the browser again. We have to remove this part. Then we save this line in the .env file. So once you save the key in the .env file, then we load it. So you have noticed here, we are getting the API key by checking if it does exist. Next, we create an API client by passing the API key. Then we use the client to generate a new response by specifying the model we want to use. You have noticed here, we are using Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental. To know which model variant you want to use, you should go to the Google API website. Over here, you go to the section Models and select the option All Models and scroll down. You have noticed here, we have the model variants and this is the version we are using, Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview. That was released on this date. So in creating the response, we specify the model we want to use and the prompt as well. So over here, we want to generate a simple SwiftUI animation that moves a rectangle from the top left to the bottom right of the screen repeatedly. Lastly, we should print the response. After saving all your changes, you can now go to the terminal and run the file using Python tray followed by the file name. So I'll press the return key and expand the terminal. You have noticed here, we now have a response from the model. It specifies what we want to do and also gives an explanation. So these are all the steps it took to generate the animation. So by scrolling down, we can go through the code. So it created the animation in the SwiftUI struct content view. Over here, it defined the state variable, move to end, and set the initial state of the animation to false. Next, we have the size of the rectangle. And also, it uses Geometry Reader to display the rectangle by setting all these properties. And here, it created a new rectangle with all these modifiers. And also, we have the animation. In the onAppear modifier, it says the final animation state. So we have it as true. And over here, it set the initial animation state as false. So to test whether this animation works correctly, we can copy the code here and move to Xcode to test it. By jumping to Xcode, I will go to this folder, control-click it, and select the option New File from Template. Let's leave the view as SwiftUI view and click Next. Then we name the file. Let's call it Moving Rectangle and press the return key to create it. There are a couple of things about the code we generated. Over here, it is using an old SwiftUI preview. You have noticed here, we have a new preview, which is simple. So let's replace everything here and leave the new preview. What we have to do next is to remove the preview from the generated code. Next, I'll copy this name to be used for the struct. You have seen here, it is defined as content view. So we replace it with moving rect view. So the error we had previously has now disappeared. Let's resume the preview. So we now have our beautiful SwiftUI animation that moves a rectangle from one edge of the screen to another edge using Gemini 2.5 Pro. There are a couple of things we can do in the animation. For example, over here, we can change the animation easing to make the animation look more realistic. Since it is using linear animation, we can, for example, change that and choose maybe ease in out and leave the duration as it is. We can also modify the animation to auto reverse. We can also change the corner radius of the rectangle as it moves from the top left to the bottom right. To do that, we can add the corner radius modifier. So over here, I will add another modifier called corner radius Instead of using the default value of 10, I will copy this state variable and paste it here. Then I will bring a question mark. So the example here is using a ternary conditional operation, which has two values. The value that comes after the question mark is the true value, and the next value is the false value. So for example, after the question mark, we can put a corner radius of 32. Then for the false value, we put 0. You have now noticed as the rectangle moves from the top left to the bottom right, the corner radii also change as well. To make it a complete circle, we change this value. Now we have 32, so we change it to half of this value, that is 40. So now you have seen at the bottom part, we have a complete circle. So this is how to get started with the Gemini API. In this example, we started with the API by generating our output through the command line. What we can do is also create our own UI to run the API. So to create a UI to interact with Gemini 2.5 Pro, we can use different Python frameworks like Gradio, Chainlit, or Streamlit. In this example, we are going to use Streamlit. So to get started with Streamlit, you come to their website and go to the docs. Then you visit the installation section. Over here, you can install it with this command, pip install Streamlit. I'll go back to Cursor. Let's clear everything in the terminal and paste the command here. I use Python 3 as my Python interpreter. So over here, I will add 3 here to the pip command and press the return key to install Streamlit. Let's clear the terminal again and minimize it. So to create a UI to interact with Gemini 2.5 Pro, we can go to the Streamlit website and learn about how to use the various components. However, since we are now in Cursor, we are going to vibe code it. After we run the app, we are going to use the same prompt here. So I'm going to copy that. Now it is not needed here. So I'll press Command and L to bring the chat window in Cursor. To vibe code the Streamlit UI, we are going to use agent mode in Cursor and leave the model as Cloud 3.7 Sonnet. We can also use Gemini 2.5 Pro to generate the UI. The purpose of this video is just to show you how to use it through the API. So I will leave it as it is and add a prompt here. In this example, we want to modify the code in this file to create a Streamlit app since we have it installed. I will also reference the Streamlit documentation and click send. So that is going to take a while because the model is going through some chain of thought and generating the various aspects of the code. So it is still generating, so let's wait for a moment. Now everything is done. So let's go through what it did. Over here, it added additional import. So we already have the first 3 imports. So the one highlighted is what it added. It also modified the API key section. To see everything clearly, I'm going to accept the file and close the chat window. So we have all the necessary imports. This section remains the same. Below the API key, the client initialization also remains the same. Since we are creating a web app with Streamlit, here we set the title of the web page. Let's call it, for example, Gemini Code Gen. Then over here, we create a user input using the text area component from Streamlit. Once we run the app, we will still see this placeholder as the prompt. I also copied the prompt initially. You have noticed here, it also added an option picker to enable you pick different kinds of models. And if I scroll down, we have a button to send the prompt. Let's save the changes. In the previous example, we ran the file using Python 3 followed by the file name. Since we have now created a Streamlit app, we need another command to run the file. Let's bring the chat window again by pressing Command L. Over here, you have seen it added information about how to run the code. So we use this command, Streamlit run followed by the file name. I'll copy it and go to the terminal. Then I'll paste it here and press the return key. We get an error. So we can copy this error and fix it. I'll go back to Cursor again, press Command L. You have also noticed in the terminal, we still have the same error. So it will be a good idea to select everything here and add it to chat. Then we can fix it. I have already installed Google Gen AI, but it is still asking to run this command to install it again. So let's do it. And over here, I will also accept the file. So there is a small change in the file. I'll save the changes. Then I'll press Ctrl C to kill the terminal and clear it. We don't need a chat window. I'm going to run the command again. There is still an error, so let's copy it and fix it again. I will accept the changes and save it. Then let's run the file. So we now have a beautiful user interface to interact with Gemini 2.5 Pro and other models as well. So over here, we can change the prompt or just use the same prompt and click generate content. We also have another error. So let's copy it again and go and fix it in Cursor. I will run it once more. Without changing the prompt or the model, let's generate the content. So if I scroll down, you have seen we have the generated SwiftUI code, which is similar to the one we did previously in the command line. And over here, we have an explanation to the code. So this is how to get started with Gemini 2.5 Pro. In this video, I showed you how to use Gemini 2.5 Pro through the Google API and how to interact with it using a beautiful Streamlit UI. We generated a SwiftUI code and tested whether it works or not.